My friends, today we are going to talk about a battle that every believer faces, a battle not fought with swords or shields, but one that takes place in the heart, in the mind, and in the soul. It is the battle against temptation. Every single one of us has felt its pull. Every one of us has heard that whisper telling us to take the easy path, to indulge in sin, to turn away from what is right. Temptation is real, and it is one of the most powerful tools used to lead believers astray. But my friends, there is good news. No matter how strong the temptation may be, no matter how weak you may feel, you do not have to fight this battle alone. There is strength available to you. There is power that can help you resist. And today we are going to look at how temptation works, how it can be defeated, and how you can stand strong in the face of the enemy's attacks. Temptation does not come in obvious forms. It does not always appear as a clear choice between right and wrong. Instead, it comes subtly, creeping into the heart and mind in ways that often go unnoticed. It disguises itself as something good, something harmless, something justifiable. That is what makes it so dangerous. The enemy does not show his true intentions outright. He plants small seeds of doubt, twisting the truth just enough to make sin look acceptable. One of the greatest dangers of temptation is its deceptive nature. It convinces people that one small compromise will not matter. It whispers that a little dishonesty is necessary, that a minor indulgence is harmless, that crossing a small line will not make a difference. But the truth is, temptation works like a slow-moving current. A person may not realize they are drifting away until they look up and find themselves far from where they were meant to be. The first step in resisting temptation is recognizing how it works. It often starts with a thought, an idea planted in the mind. That thought may seem innocent, but if it is not confronted, it grows. The mind begins to justify it, allowing space for doubt and compromise. Before long, what was once unthinkable becomes acceptable. This is how deception works. The enemy does not force anyone to sin. He simply lays the groundwork, creating the conditions in which a person convinces themselves to give in. One of the most well-known examples of this can be seen in history. A man who was known for his honesty and integrity found himself in a difficult financial situation. One day he was given the opportunity to manipulate a business deal in a way that would benefit him financially. At first he dismissed the thought, but as time passed he began to rationalize it. He told himself that it was not really stealing, he was simply using the system to his advantage. He assured himself that it was a one-time thing, something he would never do again. But after making that first compromise, it became easier to do it again. Each time he justified his actions a little more, until one day he found himself caught in a web of deception that he never intended to create. What started as a small, seemingly harmless decision led to consequences that destroyed his reputation and his peace. This is how temptation works. It never seems dangerous in the beginning. It presents itself as an opportunity, an exception, a justifiable action. It convinces people that there is no harm in bending the truth, in cutting a corner, in taking what appears to be a shortcut. But what seems like a small compromise can quickly become a pattern, leading a person further and further away from what is right. This is why awareness is so important. Those who do not recognize the subtlety of temptation are most vulnerable to it. The best way to guard against it is to remain vigilant. Every thought, every decision, every justification must be examined carefully. Is it leading towards truth or away from it? Is it strengthening character or weakening it? Is it drawing closer to what is right, or is it making room for compromise? The power of deception is strong, but it is not greater than the power of truth. The more a person surrounds themselves with truth, the less room temptation has to work. Those who remain watchful, who guard their thoughts, and who refuse to entertain even the smallest compromise are the ones who strong in the face of temptation. It is not about willpower alone, it is about knowing how temptation operates and choosing to shut the door before it ever has a chance to take hold. Temptation is persistent. It does not come only once and then leave forever. It returns again and again, knocking at the door, waiting for a moment of weakness. The enemy knows that if one attempt fails, another opportunity will come. He is patient, watching and waiting, looking for the right time to strike. No one is beyond his reach. Even the strongest, the most faithful, and most disciplined are not exempt from temptation. It is a battle that never fully ends in this life, which is why constant vigilance is required. One of the most dangerous aspects of temptation is that it does not always come in the same form. What was easy to resist yesterday may be harder to resist today. What was once an obvious trap may become harder to recognize over time. The enemy adapts, using new strategies, finding different ways to appeal to desires and weaknesses. He knows that if direct temptation does not work, subtle influence will. If one approach is rejected, another will take its place. This is why no one can afford to be careless. Just because a temptation was resisted once does not mean it will not return. The moment a person becomes overconfident, believing they are too strong to fall, they are already in danger. Temptation thrives in moments of pride, in moments of exhaustion, in moments of distraction. It comes when it is least expected, seeking to catch a person off guard. Consider the example of a man who struggled with anger. He knew his temper was a weakness, and he worked hard to control it. He avoided situations that provoked him, and for months he managed to stay calm. He believed he had overcome his anger for good. Then one day someone insulted him in a way he did not expect. In an instant his old reaction returned. He lashed out, saying things he later regretted. He had let his guard down, believing the battle was over, but temptation was only waiting for the right moment to return. This is how it works. A person may resist temptation today, but that does not mean they are free from it tomorrow. It comes in cycles, sometimes with long periods of peace in between. This is what makes it so deceptive. A person may think they have won the fight, only to find themselves caught off guard when it appears again. The key to overcoming persistent temptation is never letting down one's guard. It requires constant awareness, daily discipline, and an understanding that no one is too strong to fall. A person must recognize their weaknesses and be honest about them. They must prepare for temptation before it arrives, not after they are already in the middle of it. One of the most effective ways to resist persistent temptation is to remove its power. If there is something that continually leads to temptation, it must be dealt with. If certain influences make it harder to resist, they must be avoided. If certain thoughts create a path to compromise, they must be replaced. Ignoring temptation does not make it go away, it only makes it stronger. But confronting it, recognizing its patterns, and refusing to engage with it weakens its hold. Temptation does not stop, but neither does the strength to resist it. Those who remain watchful, who refuse to become careless, and who prepare themselves for its return, will not be easily shaken. They may be tempted, but they will not fall. They may be tested, but they will remain strong. The battle against temptation is ongoing, but victory is always possible for those who refuse to let it win. Temptation often comes disguised as something good. It rarely presents itself as something obviously wrong or destructive. Instead, it appears attractive, reasonable, and even beneficial. This is one of the most deceptive strategies of the enemy. He does not tempt with things that seem dangerous at first glance, but with things that seem harmless, justifiable, or even rewarding. A person may think they are making an innocent choice, only to realize later that they have been led away from the right path. This is how temptation works. It twists truth into something that sounds appealing. It does not begin with a blatant lie, but with a slight distortion of what is good. It offers success, pleasure, comfort, or recognition, making it seem as though these things can be achieved by any means necessary. When people desire something strongly, they often justify actions they would normally avoid. The temptation is not in the desire itself, but in the willingness to take the wrong path to fulfill it. Many people fall into temptation because they believe they are doing what is right. They tell themselves they are just making a small compromise for a greater purpose. They believe their actions are justified because their intentions are good. But compromise, even in small ways, leads to larger consequences. A single wrong decision, when justified once, becomes easier to justify again. Over time, a person may find themselves trapped in choices they never intended to make. Consider the example of a businessman who was known for his honesty. He had built a reputation for integrity and fairness, but as his company grew, the pressure to succeed increased. One day he was offered a deal that required bending the truth slightly, nothing extreme, just a small misrepresentation that would help secure an important contract. He told himself it was for the good of his employees and his business. It was just one small step, but that one step led to another, and then another. Over time, he found himself making compromises he once thought he would never make. What started as a seemingly harmless decision became a pattern that eventually damaged everything he had worked for. This is why it is so important to recognize temptation, even when it appears to be something good. Not every opportunity is meant to be taken. Not every success is worth the cost. Sometimes the hardest choice is to say no to something that looks beneficial but requires compromise. True success, true fulfillment, and true peace come not from taking shortcuts, but from staying on the right path, even when it is difficult. One of the best ways to resist temptation disguised as good is to ask a simple question. Does this choice align with truth, or does it require even a small compromise? If the answer is not clear, then caution is necessary. A person must learn to step back, reflect, and seek wisdom before making decisions that could have lasting consequences. Another important strategy is to avoid making decisions in moments of pressure. Many wrong choices are made because people feel rushed or desperate. The enemy often uses urgency to push people into bad decisions before they have time to think clearly. Learning to wait, to seek clarity, and to trust that the right path will always be available is essential in resisting temptation. Temptation is not always obvious. It often appears as something good, something beneficial, something rewarding. But the cost of compromise is never worth the temporary gain. Those who stay true to what is right, even when it means sacrificing immediate success, will find a deeper and more lasting reward. They will not be swayed by deception because they have learned to see beyond the surface. They will not be led astray by what looks good because they seek what is truly right. And in the end, they will find peace, knowing they did not fall for the lies that so easily trap others. Temptation often comes at moments of weakness. It does not wait for a person to be strong, alert, or prepared. Instead, it strikes when they are tired, discouraged, or vulnerable. This is one of the enemy's greatest strategies to attack when resistance is low. When a person is weary, their judgment is clouded, their resolve is weakened, and they are more likely to give in to things they would normally reject. This pattern is seen throughout history. People rarely fall into temptation when they are at their strongest. Instead, it happens after long struggles, disappointments, or exhaustion. It is in these moments that small compromises start to seem acceptable, shortcuts look appealing, and wrong choices appear justified. When someone is physically tired, emotionally drained, or spiritually empty, they are far more susceptible to making decisions they would regret later. One of the most dangerous aspects of temptation is that it can exploit natural human needs. Every person experiences hunger, loneliness, stress, and exhaustion. None of these things are wrong, but they can create an opening for temptation if not handled properly. A person who is lonely may be tempted to seek comfort in the wrong place. Someone who is exhausted may choose convenience over what is right. A person who feels hopeless may believe that a wrong choice is their only option. The best way to resist temptation in moments of weakness is to recognize when these vulnerable times are happening. Awareness is the first step in defense. If a person knows they are physically or emotionally drained, they should be extra cautious about decisions they make. They should avoid putting themselves in situations where they will be tempted. They should also take steps to regain their strength through rest, prayer, and wise counsel. A great example of this can be seen in the life of a young woman named Sarah. She had always been strong in her principles and disciplined in her choices. But after months of stress at work, exhaustion from personal struggles, and disappointment in her relationships, she found herself feeling empty. One night, after a particularly difficult day, she was tempted to make a decision that she knew was wrong. She told herself that she deserved a moment of escape, that it was just a small compromise. Normally, she would have resisted without hesitation, but in that moment of weakness, the temptation seemed much harder to overcome. Thankfully, before making a decision, she recognized that she was not thinking clearly. She reached out to a close friend, took time to rest, and reminded herself of what truly mattered. The next day, with a clearer mind and renewed strength, she was grateful she had not given in. Her circumstances had not changed, but she had avoided making them worse by resisting temptation when she was most vulnerable. This example highlights an important truth: temptation is hardest to resist when a person is weak, but it is also most dangerous in those moments. That is why preparation is essential. A person must build habits that strengthen them before they reach moments of vulnerability. They must establish safeguards, surround themselves with the right influences, and learn to recognize when they are in a dangerous emotional or physical state. Another key strategy is to delay major decisions when feeling weak. Many wrong choices happen because people feel pressured to act immediately. But wisdom often comes with time. If a person can step away, regain strength, and seek guidance, they will often see the situation more clearly and make a better choice. Temptation will always come, especially in moments of weakness. But those who recognize this pattern, prepare in advance, and learn to seek help before making decisions will stand strong. They will not be led astray by exhaustion or discouragement. Instead, they will find the strength to resist, knowing that no moment of weakness is greater than the power of truth and wisdom. Temptation often comes in subtle forms, disguising itself as something harmless or even good. It rarely appears as an obvious evil, but instead presents itself as a reasonable choice, a small compromise, or something that seems beneficial in the short term. This deception makes it even more dangerous because people often fail to recognize it for what it truly is until they are already caught in its trap. One of the most effective ways temptation works is by shifting a person's focus away from long-term consequences and onto immediate gratification. It convinces people that a small lie won't matter, that cutting corners is just being efficient, or that indulging once won't have lasting effects. But each of these small choices creates a pattern, and before long, what once seemed unthinkable becomes acceptable. The subtle nature of temptation can be seen in how it often targets good desires and twists them. A person may desire success, which is a good thing, but temptation can turn that into an obsession with power or dishonesty to get ahead. Someone may want companionship, but temptation may lead them into relationships that are harmful. Even the desire for rest can be twisted into laziness or avoidance of responsibility. The problem is not in the desires themselves, but in the way they are manipulated to lead a person away from what is right. This is why discernment is so important. People must be able to recognize when something that seems good is actually leading them in the wrong direction. The ability to pause and examine a situation carefully can make all the difference. Asking simple questions: is this choice aligned with truth? Will it have consequences I will regret? Am I justifying something that deep down I know is wrong? Can reveal the true nature of a temptation. A powerful example of this can be seen in the story of Daniel. He was a young man living in a culture that did not share his values. The king offered him the best food and luxury, things that seemed harmless and even desirable. But Daniel knew that accepting those things would mean compromising his principles. It was not an obvious or dramatic temptation, it was simply a meal, a seemingly small thing. But he understood that giving in, even in a small way, would lead to bigger compromises. He chose to stand firm, and because of that, he remained strong in his convictions and set an example for others. Like Daniel, people today face countless moments where temptation does not appear as something terrible, but as something ordinary, something easy to justify. It is in these small, daily decisions that a person's true strength is revealed. Those who can recognize when they are being subtly led in the wrong direction are the ones who can resist temptation before it takes hold. One of the best defenses against subtle temptation is developing a habit of self-reflection. Taking time each day to evaluate one's choices and motivations helps build awareness. Another defense is surrounding oneself with people who encourage integrity and truth. When a person is surrounded by others who hold them accountable, they are far less likely to be deceived by seemingly harmless temptations. Additionally, being intentional about what influences one's thoughts is crucial. What a person watches, listens to, and surrounds themselves with shapes their thinking. If they fill their minds with truth and wisdom, they will be better equipped to recognize and resist deception. But if they allow negative influences to take root, their ability to discern right from wrong will weaken. Temptation does not always come in the form of obvious wrongs. More often it comes as a small compromise, a harmless indulgence, or a justifiable decision. But those who learn to recognize the signs, question their choices, and seek wisdom before acting will avoid the pitfalls that so many fall into. They will stand strong, not just against the obvious, but against the subtle, which is often the most dangerous of all. My friends, we all face temptation. It comes in different forms, but the battle is the same. But hear me now, temptation does not have to defeat you. You can stand strong, you can overcome. You can walk in truth and in victory. The choice is yours. Will you stand firm or will you fall? Will you listen to the enemy's lies or will you stand on the truth? The battle is real, but so is the power that has been given to you. Choose to stand strong, choose to resist, and you will find victory in the battle against temptation.